Thanks for listening to Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast, keeping you up to date with the latest in American soccer. And don't forget to subscribe.
All right, and we're back. Gentlemen, how's everybody doing?
I'm doing great, man. Like, how are you guys?
I hear our intro music twice, by the way, in our
In your headphones?
in my headphones, yeah. So whoever's doing that might want to turn the.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah.
Already technical difficulties.
Steven is getting emotional.
And it's been forever.
I know, right?
You know, that
Hello.
intro song that we do comes from the last World Cup the U.S. played at. I was at a bar, and we were all chanting USA. Different time, different squad.
Different
though.
time, yeah. That was
Yeah, it was 8 years ago.
that was two. That was during the Obama administration. That was 2 presidents ago.
I was in high school. I was still in high school.
I just finished up high school last time we were in the World Cup. And I'm still in school, though.
Well, that makes one of us. I'm not.
But all right, well, I guess this is Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast. Back after 16-month hiatus, 18-month
Actually,
hiatus.
you know, I was Jake. You know what's really funny? Last time we did a podcast, the three of us.
Tell me about it. I'm gonna lean back in my chair. You guys can't see me, I don't think, unless you're watching on YouTube.
I can't see you at all. Nope.
Nope, we can't see you, but I do remember this. This was just as COVID was starting to set its foot in Europe. And I asked you two dummies,
Yeah, let me tell.
the Champions League matches were getting postponed. And I asked you guys, should we be worried about COVID? And both of you said, nah, screw COVID. And, things didn't go well. So our predictions go really swell.
Our predictions, non-soccer wise, are pretty bad, but outside of that, I think they're pretty good. Steven was over here bragging about how. And okay, this is actually true. Steven loved Matt Turner before loving Matt Turner was hip, and he's he's doing a victory lap, about Matt Turner. So we'll let him have his moment right now.
You know, Matt Turner, I told you way back. I told you way back that he was special, that he was going to supersede Zach Steffen, who made, I think, a career mistake by going to City and sitting behind Emerson as the number one goalkeeper. Whatever. I don't even care. I care less for City. But the point being is that you do not want to be in a position as a goalkeeper in which you don't get regular playing minutes. And then on top of that, he made some massive mistakes in the FA Cup that just cost him. Was it the FA Cup or was it the Community Shield?
I think we call that the English Championship now at this point, there, buddy, where he's just. Are we doing? Is this a family-friendly podcast, or are we?
I think we'll keep it more family-friendly.
Or is this Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast After Dark?
Well, it's only
I don't think this is an after dark.
Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't advertise it as that. So
No.
it would be false advertising.
This was really just put together last second. This isn't. This was just something that was done on the whim.
We were talking about the World Cup. We were talking about the World Cup. And we're like, why don't we record a podcast?
Hey, Jake, I did get a message from a listener that Armand's and Iz's names or cameras are flipped. So Armand is actually.
You know what?
Here's
the thing.
I'm actually Steven Jodderin. So.
I'm Marco Fly.
All right, I'll fix that. We can fix that midstream. Here, we'll just do that. Just so everybody knows. I had to refamiliarize myself with the streaming software here, okay? And Skype, because we're still using Skype, that's how long ago we last recorded, is that we're using Skype still and not Zoom or
there's
something
literally
like
dust on my mic, so.
But the OBS threw me a curveball, or no, Skype did, when it changed the alignment. Hey, Steven, don't send anything chat-wise because the entire stream can see it.
Really?
Yeah.
Where's the stream? I don't see it. I have the YouTube right next to me.
Why don't you watch what happens on YouTube here in about 10 seconds?
Okay.
When you
how does the chat show
when
up?
your stream goes blue, there it goes. Hey, look at that.
Oh,
Thank you.
Maybe keep that.
Well, since we're having an on-air production meeting, Armand, your video feed is no bueno. You should take a step back because all we see is this much of your face.
Okay. That better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess so. Basically, the whole point, what I'm trying to say is, I had to relearn how to use everything, and then about 5 minutes before we went live, the Skype feeds were all kind of screwed up in terms of what I was pulling in, and I had a panic attack because I couldn't figure out how to fix it. And then about 30 seconds before we were supposed to go on, or at least start the stream, I figured it out, and these two can attest to how nervous I was that I couldn't.
Yeah, you were.
Figure it out. Yeah, it was much easier 2 years ago before everything updated. So, anyway, to the listeners who pointed out that the naming was wrong on the stream, I've gone and fixed it, and now you should see the correct Twitter handles for Armand and Steven. But
although my Twitter is on private, so I don't know why you would follow it.
Yeah. Well, and mine was too, up until like 2 days ago. But anyway, should we talk like soccer?
Yeah, let's
do it, boys.
Do we want to? Does anybody want to say anything before we do that? You know, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is this isn't really a comeback podcast. This is more of a.
It's like a one-off, maybe a two-off.
We're just scratching an itch, basically, and then you might not ever hear from us again. Who knows? Maybe this will go great, and then it'll turn into what it once was. I don't know. Steven's in law school, so he probably doesn't have time to do this anymore, anyway. So. Armand's out of school, but you worked for FC Dallas, so in all likelihood, or I'm not, no, I'll keep that in the down low. You probably don't need that out there, so we won't say that. So, yeah. But
Can't take it back now. Anyway, backdrop, Qatar World Cup, all the bribery and the corruption. I don't know it sucks. It's stupid. I don't know what to tell y'all. We're going to talk about the tactics on the field because I don't think three jamokes in the middle of America are going to be able to do much. But just so the listeners, the three people that are listening to the podcast will know that is top of mind to some capacity.
And by the way, while we're doing this, and I'm not even sure how many people are watching right now, this could just be our families watching us at this point. We are taking questions. It says... So if you want to drop in something in the chat, go ahead. We'll see it. We'll read it. You can tell us we suck. I don't really care. So yeah, if you want to be a part of the conversation,
there you go.
Drop a comment in the comment section, and we'll discuss what you have to say at chat. Anyway.
Well, okay. On today's podcast, we're talking USA England, our reaction to that, USA Iran, and then any leftover World Cup thoughts.
You forgot about USA Wales.
It was long ago. Moving on from USA Wales, but maybe we'll touch on that. But instant reaction after a couple of days here to USA England.
Can we go Wales first?
You want to go Wales?
Yeah,
all
right.
Go
Wales. I think.
Give me a reaction to Wales.
England.
Okay, you build into England. Go.
Yeah, I think it builds in England. I thought the first half was fantastic. I think we can all agree on that, right? The U.S. looked like a sharp team in that first half. In the second half, we just saw a complete drop off. We saw. It wasn't really working. It wasn't really working out in the second half, and a late Walker Zimmerman lunge led to a Gareth Bale penalty, and that's all she wrote. It was a 1-1 draw after the U.S. scored through Tim Weah in the first half, and that's all that happened. But I mean, Jake, I'm reading some of the show notes, which we actually have this time. You said it was one of the better first halves we've seen from the U.S. since Berhalter took over. And you're a very harsh critic of Berhalter. So I want to hear, what made you think that?
We're talking about the Wales game, right? I was doing a little, just double checking some audio stuff here on my end. That first half, I guess in terms of just possession, they dictated the way the game was going to be played in that first half. I felt like they had Wales on the back foot, and maybe that's how Wales maybe intended to play that game until they got behind 1 goal down. But to me, I thought outside of actually maybe getting more, scoring chances, I thought that was the most, like I said, I think that was the most like put together half I've seen them play under Berhalter. A lot of times, what I've noticed under Greg Berhalter is there's never really any threatening moments, I guess. I'm bored basically when I'm watching the U.S. men's national team. They just don't feel as though they can score goals, and I think the numbers suggest this as well. That they're not a very good scoring team, especially on or away from U.S. soil. And for me, going into the first game, the first half of the World Cup with a bunch of guys in that starting 11, and in fact, I don't think any of them had played in it. Right? None of them. No one in that starting 11 had appeared in the World Cup.
I think you're right.
Correct.
I want to say you're right.
So,
starting 11, yeah.
To not be again, it's Wales. It wasn't like they were playing England, but to go into that moment and not be afraid or not playing really uptight, I thought was a very positive. Now the second half was a completely different story. They looked atrocious. I thought that second half. I think, to be honest with you, I think they actually were fortunate to actually tie that game or to actually walk out of there with a draw.
It was, for me, I obviously, no surprise here, follow the Swiss national team. That's the team that I most closely resonate. But Switzerland also opened to Wales at the European Championships last summer, and the game pretty much followed the same style in which Switzerland or the U.S. score early, and then I thought the United States, I said that to everybody I watched with, the United States need to do more to go after the second goal, because Wales, once they've inserted, who's their big striker? Kiefer Moore, who got the goal against Switzerland, I said that is going to hurt the United States if they do not do more to push for the second, and rather than going up 2-0 and then I'm going 1-1, and the second half was a lot worse under Berhalter. But all things considering, you take the draw and you move on. You knew that Iran got smashed by England, so your thoughts were, okay, survive against England and move on, right? You survive against England, and there's a good chance that you'd be out of the group. And little did we know that Iran would respond against Wales, take the 3 points, and then this sets up this massive showdown this past Friday, Black Friday, 1 p.m. against England, in which about 15 million Americans tuned in. And it was a rather intense game. But my initial reaction going into the game, but especially after the game, was that Berhalter missed an opportunity to say, knowing that they have to beat Iran regardless of the result against England, that they should have just gone on and tried to go for the 3 points rather than try to go for 0-0.
I agree.
I think it was a big mistake that they didn't go for it. It was to me, Berhalter kind of had one foot out the door and said, I'm waiting for Iran rather than playing this 90 minutes and just playing what it is. Because if you listen to the British media and listen to what they're saying, they basically said that England were terrible. A lot of people want to get rid of Southgate. His tactics don't work for England. You leave the most talented Englishman, Phil Foden, on the bench, the most creative. England lacked creativity. So the United States put England under a lot of pressure. I didn't know why Berhalter didn't just say caution to the wind and go for it, and just seeing what happens, because I think the Americans clearly were up for the task against England. I didn't think England would wipe the field with the United States. I thought that the United States just has too much talent. They have too much pride, too much talent, that the game would be close regardless. And I think sometimes the United States plays better than it should, because I don't think Berhalter is the right fit for this cast of characters. But that's a conversation for another day. Right now, we're in the midst of the World Cup. We can't get rid of Berhalter.
Well, we've been having that conversation. Yours truly has been having that conversation about Berhalter since, I don't know, 2019 probably. When did he get hired? 2019. Yeah, 19. I don't think he's been that great. And Steven, you made a good point too. Okay, go on.
Well, I was just saying, how many goals has the United States scored under the last 4 games?
1, yeah.
1. I mean,
it's
over 300 minutes of field action against Saudi Arabia, Japan, England and Wales, and they've managed one goal. I mean, I know they hit the bar. McKennie had his chance against England, but still, you don't sit there and think, "Oh, the United States is going to score." You think you have opportunities that just come naturally through the course of 90 minutes that just about any team would have. And the question is whether you have the players to finish it. And I just don't think we're missing a number 9. But again, Armand, why didn't Berhalter insert Jesus Ferreira? Why didn't Gio Reyna play? Why didn't you put some more creative players into the field against England?
And before we touch the Gio Reyna thing, by the way, Carlos Guzman in the comments wants to know if we think Berhalter was just saving Gio Reyna for the Iran game. And Carlos, we'll touch on that a little bit later, that exact question. But I just wanted to put that out there. I acknowledge it. I don't think that's what was happening per se, but I think we'll get into that a little bit later in terms of the comments that Eric Winalda made on Twitter.
Tinfoil Ted.
Yeah.
He says himself in spaces, man. That's kind of breaking into those spaces, interesting. But you're talking about how they played, Steven, and like if we look at like kind of the advanced numbers that we see against Wales specifically, right? Like their expected goal values. This is actually kind of how kind of insight, kind of how I watch games now. Look at numbers, and FIFA, for you guys that don't know, has a bunch of data out there that you can go through, and there's so much. We've pulled up a lot for you guys on the pod. But if you look at their expected goal values according to Opta, the U.S. had an expected goal value of 0.79, which isn't anything like crazy. One thing that I like to look at, though, is your expected goal per shot. 0.13 is pretty good. It's honestly above average, and that's what you want to see. You look at how much they allowed. If you don't include the penalty, it's around 0.76. It was around pretty even. The penalty, for those that don't know, is actually 0.78. So if you look at some websites, you'll see that their expected goals allowed value is 1.5. We usually remove the penalty because we want to analyze what happened within the kind of open play, and we always do incorporate that at some point. But they, the normal build-up, you can tell from the U.S. is obviously center back to fullback. It's a basic build. One of the things that we saw was really interesting in the Wales game is they crossed the ball 26 times and completed 3. That's pretty bad. Pulisic attempted 14 and Robinson 7. That's almost the definition of we're kind of struggling to break you down. We're forcing it. But if you look at the Wales, let's look at the game, how they set up against Wales. And against Wales, when we look at it, Wales sat in the mid to low block, which we know that the U.S. kind of struggles in, right? Actually, they say 28% of the time Wales was in the mid block, and 25% of the time they were in the low block. And we all know where the U.S. kind of struggles in those moments, right? I thought personally in the Wales game, he was screaming out for Jesus. A guy like Jesus to kind of connect things in the middle, to kind of help and be a little bit more creative and help in the midfield as well, too, because he can drop in those moments. In the England game, if we're reflecting on, again, what they created, their expected goals went down. It was around 0.63 expected goals. England's was 0.77. Their expected goals per shot was actually a little bit lower, 0.063 versus England's 0.09.
Armand.
Yeah.
So in the England game, and I don't remember if this happened in the Wales game, it seemed early on that there was a direction from Berhalter or whatever, the coaching staff, to get Zimmerman to make more diagonal passes and out to the wings. Now, remind me if I'm wrong, was that the same under Wales? Secondly, it seemed to have failed. There were at least 2 occasions, I remember, Zimmerman just didn't connect the pass. It was a bad pass. And obviously, I don't remember if it amounted to much. But still, what was the direction there from Zimmerman? And I think it made Zimmerman – it just put Zimmerman in a bad light because I think people were already skeptical after the Wales game, him giving up the penalty. But then putting him in a position that I don't watch enough of Nashville, but – is Zimmerman, I mean, I know Bonucci for Italy or Juventus does a great job of lobbing these balls, and you see a lot of center backs who are able to make these passes. Zimmerman struggled against England. Was this direction on the Berhalter? Was it going to work? What did you see into those passes from Zimmerman out wide early on in the English match what was your reaction to that?
I think here's the thing. So like Nashville plays a very direct style of play, right? And that's how Zimmerman plays. So he should be kind of used to those long balls because the way they play is very direct. If you look at some of his advanced numbers, his expected completion rate is actually a little bit lower because he's trying to attempt more direct passes, and that's the way they want to play. And to be honest with you, I don't think it worked. I think they were more efficient in the midfield, especially versus attacking kind of more wide. And if you look at it, there's only 9 crosses in that game from the U.S. I think it was almost a completely different game plan almost of sorts. And McKennie and Musa, they had 14 midfield line breaks. They were actually breaking lines, them two in the middle. And it's like I think Zimmerman has to do those though, right? Because he's gonna have to take initiative in those moments. And I know we're gonna talk about this a little bit later as well too, but in those moments, he's going to have to be the guy that's going to have to break lines and make those tough, difficult passes, especially, and we're going to talk about this later, against the Iran team that only needs a draw to advance. So all in all, there was definitely initiative to go out there. I don't know if it necessarily worked. The middle was a lot stronger, though, in going through those combinations. But again, one of the things is I don't think they created quality chances in those moments. I mean, I think the McKennie chance you can say for sure, right? The Pulisic
was Pulisic just a moment of brilliance?
Yeah, exactly. It was a moment of brilliance versus you can't look at XG on a very small scale, but it gets you an idea, right? It gets an idea of how this team, is creating opportunities, right? Sometimes it's gonna be high, sometimes it's gonna be low. I mean, you got to look at things a little bit more micro level. But at the same time, it seems it kind of passed the eye test for me as well, too. I didn't think, Jake, I don't know if you feel the same way, that there was that many chances created in those moments, even though they played really well and were the protagonists for most of the match.
They don't do anything. This is the thing. This joke gets made. I make this joke a lot. I refer to Greg Berhalter as Greg Guardiola or Pep Berhalter or something like that, because I feel like he just wants to pass the ball for the sake of passing the ball around the 18-yard box, and then nothing ever really happens. It's and I get it, you can't get scored on if you have the ball, right? Mm-hmm. But there's nothing, and I don't even think this is an issue of, to be honest with you, I think the whole notion of the U.S. doesn't have a striker, I think is actually kind of overblown, because I think a really good tactician could find a way to circumnavigate that a little bit. I think
to get those guys in those positions to score.
Because here's the thing. This is what I don't understand, and I don't watch enough Lille to make any sort of comment on this. But isn't Timothy Weah kind of doesn't he play number 9 for Lille every now and then?
I think every now and then he does.
Why? Yeah. I mean, and I get it. You can set up in a 4-3-3 and things can be kind of fluid, right? Where Weah could shift over to be that, I guess, number 9. I don't know why you would have Haji Wright playing in the middle or Josh Sargent playing, or not in the middle, but out wide or whatever. But to me, it's and this kind of alludes to, again, and thank you, Carlos, for another question about creativity with under Berhalter's system. To me, it begs the question, wouldn't this lineup almost be better suited to play a 4-3-3 with a false 9 almost, where you don't have a marksman at the top of the formation. It's kind of fluid. You can have guys kind of
make runs in the middle.
Yeah. Where you have multiple wingers that are gonna make runs in the middle and they can drift back out wide and all that stuff. And then that gives you the opportunity to get a guy like Gio Reyna, who we'll get to this later on in the show. Why the hell isn't he on the field at all for this team besides the 15 to 20 minutes he played against England? Especially over guys like frickin' Jordan Morris, and I get they play different positions, but Shaq Moore as well. I mean, why are these guys getting playing time? And I think this also, if we're gonna talk about number 9s and all this stuff, and I don't know if I blasted him on Twitter. I'm sure I did at some point in October or September. Kind of gets to the other point too of Ricardo Pepi was actually in form leading up to this World Cup the last few weeks in the Netherlands. Why wasn't he called into this team?
But Jake, you missed the point. You have Jesus Ferreira, who had a pretty damn good season with FC Dallas.
Okay, yeah. Okay, that's kind of rich coming from you. That's kind of rich coming from you, actually. And I think Armand knows where I'm going with this. You can't, and you've been saying this in our chats too. You can't sit here and complain about I think you said this in the Wales game, and where you said not a good showing for MLS players. So you can't sit here and dunk on MLS players when Walker Zimmerman draws a penalty, and he looked like ass in the England game. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't see what.
Jake,
no. Let me finish. You can't say Jesus Ferreira deserves playing time and then dump on MLS players, especially when I'm like, well, you could have called in Ricardo Pepi or Jordan Pefok instead. You know what I mean?
No, you're not wrong with that assertion. The problem is why not insert the guy on the bench who produces goals, who is known to produce goals for his club team in MLS, when you put in Haji Wright, someone who was on wasn't really on the radar.
It's on anyone's radar.
Really on no one's radar, and Berhalter pulls him in. Now, we can always criticize. Everything's always hindsight's 2020 in this regard. I just don't think, and I wonder if this is inexperience from both the manager and the players, that I don't think they recognize well enough in the final 15 to 20 minutes of the England game of the opportunity they had to take it to England, because they really put England on the back foot. There was a lot of pressure, creativity.
Steven, can I interrupt you for 1 second? I want to bring up something real quick to kind of reinforce what you're saying. So according to Omar Chowdhury, he's the CEO of the 21st Group. It's a kind of statistical website. They said that he tweets, is the definition of a free hit tonight for the U.S. There's virtually no difference between a draw and loss in terms of qualification chances, 45% to 42%. As either case, only a win versus Iran will do. They shouldn't settle for a point. So continue.
Yeah, I just don't understand why we didn't come in that moment and say, go for it. Give the players the opportunity to express themselves and say, in some sense, you're playing with house money already. Go out there and see. Take the 3 points. And suddenly, if you do knock out the three, if you do have the 3 points, or you suddenly put more pressure, I think that would bode better for their confidence going into an Iran match in which they will have to score. Let's just face it. They will have to score.
The other weird thing.
Go ahead.
The other weird thing, though, too, like when you think about it, and people were getting crapped on for Twitter for suggesting this, and I kind of had this thought too a little bit of, you're playing with house money, right? You have a free shot at England because the result, if it's a draw or a loss, doesn't matter, right? It's not going to hurt you in terms of getting out of the group. Is it not, if you're not going to go for it in that game, is it not a little reckless then to sit there and be like, why did you bother playing Weston McKennie and Sergiño Dest 70-plus minutes in that game? They could have gotten another yellow. You would have lost them for Iran. So it's like, at that point, why did you...
McKennie got pulled out, right? Like,
yeah, they both got subbed off. And actually, Sergiño Dest was really pissed off, actually. But the thing, I guess the point I'm trying to make is, you've already gotten that far with them on the field. Why would you take them out? Just go for it. Just go, and I get it. They're both, I think Weston McKennie has been out for the last month or 6 weeks at Juventus. But just go for it at that point. To me, I thought playing them was incredibly risky for a game that didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Now, if they won, it's a completely different ball game, right? We're talking about, you just need to draw against Iran, which, and then Armand, you can speak this better than I could. I would feel a lot better trying to get a draw against Iran than I would trying to get a win, I guess, against England. But if you could get the win against England, then I feel like you're in the catbird seat in terms of I feel like Iran's probably the perfect team to be able to grind out a point against, because they don't really intimidate me attacking wise. It's the position they're in now. It's, can the U.S. find a goal in that game? And for some reason, if Iran scores, is the U.S. capable of scoring 2 goals against Iran? I don't think they are.
So,
well, Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Armand. So what I was going to say is, before we, I guess, talk about Iran, what, like, in the context of like the England game, I thought it was a great showing from the U.S. on everything, but one of the more important things, like actually creating quality chances. I think the McKennie chance was quality. I mean, Pulisic was individual brilliance. Outside of that, there wasn't anything crazy going on there. And again, kind of like I was talking about, XG is a pretty good barometer if you're creating chances or whatnot. And again, you don't want to make a team judgment based off 2 games, right? And obviously, great players can outperform expected goals. Like Messi, I think Argentina's expected goals value versus Mexico was like 0.3. But Messi and Enzo Martinez scored brilliant goals, and they obviously supersede that. So look, like defensively, I would probably argue is strong. They pressed in the 4-4-2. We saw Weah kind of tuck in a little bit, and England was kind of struggling to kind of break lines, go through the middle. It's just, to me, it's difficult because, look, the draw guarantees that you'll win and you're in. Now, like, look, like you can say, like Armand, like, what if Wales beats England? Yeah, that could happen, right? Like, this World Cup's been crazy. We've seen it. But
it would have to be at a crazy goal differential.
Yeah, it would have to be like a pretty decent goal difference. And like, yeah, it's pretty unlikely. But again, like, just playing devil's advocate, obviously I thought they should have gone for more. But playing devil's advocate, that draw did secure the scenario where, and guys, look, let's be honest here. If you said you had to win one game and you have to win a game to advance out the group stage, like, come on. If you told me you had to win a game if you had to win one game against, that's not England to advance, I think we all would have taken it going into this group.
But we say that, and I think it's right.
I don't know if I would have taken it, actually.
Well, I don't.
The way I envisioned them getting out of the group was a win against Wales, a draw against Iran, and a loss to England. That's how I'm like, if they're going to get out in the way they got out in 2014, it's going to be something like that. And England's going to piss pound somebody. Hey, guess what? They did piss pound somebody. They piss pounded Iran. So there was your there was the game on goal differential, and you beat Wales, and you put them behind the 8 ball too. So it's like, that's how I envisioned it. It wasn't. And I guess what's the difference of flipping those two around, right? I guess where you.
Yeah, but it's the result that Iran beat Wales that kind of throws things.
Not to mention too, and history likes to repeat itself or rhyme or whatever the whole adage is. I believe the last time the U.S. played Iran in a World Cup, Iran eliminated the U.S. in the 1998 World Cup.
My dad talks about it. He talks about it all the time.
So, and there's the whole, like we kind of alluded to beforehand, there is the political underlying issue there with political affairs between the U.S. and Iran as well. I'm not sure how big of a factor that is, but I don't know. I don't like the idea of having to get a win against Iran. I just feel like it's going to be super tough for them to grind out a goal, like to win a 1-0 game.
Look, they could do it, right? They could pull off the win. I just think what my worry is that Berhalter is somewhat, his tactics don't align with the strength of this team. The midfield against England was fantastic. Musa, Tyler Adams, and Weston McKennie. Great. But there's a disconnect when it comes to just solid, talented players and then being able to be creative enough in the final third to produce quality chances. Moreover, it is tournament football, and what we always said, you need to just have a moment of brilliance or just take the opportunity that you get, that 1 or 2 times that you get an absolute clear chance, make it count. But I just don't know, outside of the players that Berhalter has played, whether or not they're going to produce this opportunity, which is, I think, a good opportunity, good transition into this Iran match, in which win and we go through, right? In some sense, we control our own destiny. I think the media, generally speaking, the United States, has significantly underplayed how strong Iran can be when it comes to sitting back and being comfortable in a game in which they just need to soak up much pressure and play off the counterattack. Now, Armand, obviously you have Iranian heritage. It's a lot easier for you to talk about this than I am, so I'm going to transition over this to you to give
our resident Iranian, Armand Kafai. Take it away.
Yeah, it's my dual national nightmare, guys. Like, straight up.
Who are you rooting for?
U.S. I've told people this from the get-go. It's weird. I know everybody, he's a Mexican American and he roots for the U.S. or Mexico, which might have been a good call after their showings. It's my dual national nightmare, but I mean, obviously I've been a part of a podcast with Uncle Sam's soccer podcast. Like, it'd be interesting if I were the other way. But if we're looking at, Iran, okay, what did I tell you guys? I feel like I hammered this home to you guys a lot, that Iran could cause problems.
You did. When the draw came out, You said Iran is the team that people will not pay attention to because it's Iran.
Exactly. And here's the thing. You watched, and look, here's the thing, right? Like, we have to acknowledge the political aspect of it. And a lot of the people I've been listening to, and, you know, they kind of don't, like, they talk about the political aspects of why Iran laid an egg against England. And I said, I don't think, and I remember telling people, I don't think England's that good. I think Iran just played that bad. That's the worst I've ever seen them play, and that's not an exaggeration.
Was it something we were talking about in the pre-show? Was England just a bad matchup for Iran?
I think there was that, and it's also the fact that they went a 5-back line. If you look, their formation was more of like a 5-4-1 almost at times. And I was watching a game before the show. Man, they did not know what their role was in those respective roles. You had the winger Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh, he's a talented winger that plays in the Eredivisie. He's gonna be out. He picked up 2 yellow cards over the last 2 games. You see him kind of bolt forward in moments in the press, and then no one's covering him. He gets beat, and then I took notes on that first goal especially because I thought it was very interesting. They weren't compact. They're disorganized. They were all over the place. They were spread out to the fact to where Harry Maguire was able to break a line to Mason Mount, who was able to find Sterling, who they were both unmarked at the moment. Sterling then pings out wide to Luke Shaw. All while in the middle, the Iranians are ball watching. They're not watching the game. They're not watching the game itself, not marking. Bellingham just runs, makes a nice little run, wide open, bam, goal. And you see that. You see the center backs breaking lines. What they did, so let's break it down. Against England, 26% of the time out of possession, they were in a mid block. 28% of the time, they were in a low block. And 22% they were in attacking transition. So what happened? What changed? What exactly happened as Steven disappears from the stream?
He had to go get something.
Yeah.
We are now graciously left with his background of
Hop Sweetie.
For Uncle Sam's Soccer Podcast.
Yeah. So you go look at the Iran-Wales game. What changed? The shape changed. They went 4-3-3. We saw the introduction of Osmoon as Sardar Osmoon, who plays for Bayer Leverkusen, as like a starter. We saw Ali Golazadeh as your right winger. Mehdi Taremi, who plays for Porto, as your left winger. Those are all European front three. Then you saw the addition of Saeed Ezzatolahi, also in the middle as well too. And you switched to a 4-3-3, and you watched them play, and you saw Reza Rezarian. I probably said his last name wrong.
Sounds good to me. I don't know. You sound like you're. You sound like I'm like wow. I didn't know.
I might have. He was an experienced part of 2018 World Cup roster. We saw him just at right back, and he played a key role going up, attacking from that right hand side. You actually saw Golazadeh and Rezaian actually. You know, they created most of the opportunities to the right hand side. They ripped them apart, and they were able to press better. They were able to win the ball better. They were able to recover better. And guys, I told you, Wales is the worst team in the group. They are.
We dodged a bullet there was a massive bullet that the U.S. and Iran probably dodged with Ukraine.
Wales beating Ukraine.
Yes, because they're Ukraine. We're all yes, they are better. But then there's the socio-political aspect of Ukraine as well. They would have been the darlings of the World Cup, right? Where everybody would have been behind them the entire way, and that would have been a buzzsaw, I guess, if you will.
And Jake, you mentioned something that Iran doesn't like necessarily scare you offensively. Here's the thing: against the U.S., I probably tend to agree. I think the U.S. is stout defensively, and that they don't they shouldn't.
Well,
but you look at that.
There's one. I do think there is an issue in the U.S. backline. I do think Walker Zimmerman can be exploited. I think the Chris Richards injury probably screwed the U.S. and I don't know. Look, this is a discussion for a different day. I would have bought John Brooks to the World Cup with me. That's something I would have done. But
does Berhalter go with the similar lineup that we've seen the last two?
I bet Josh Sargent starting up top.
So
I think that's the only change.
Yeah, I think so. Keep in mind, Iran they tried to play compact in a cute 5-back system, right? The players had no idea what they were doing. They looked lost, and I don't think that they came against Wales in a 4-3-3 shape that was much more compact, much more organized. they got rid of Jahan Bash in order to and Bergan Golazadeh, who's honestly a much better fit. He's very one-footed though. He was on the right-hand side. He's left-footed. So he's an inverted winger, but he can't play with his right. And that's a very interesting dynamic. One of the I think key players within the team is Ehsan Hajsafi. He's a kind of a utility Swiss Army knife of sorts. Think of like Akel Acosta, like 33 years old. He can play left back. He can play center mid. He can play center back if necessarily needed. And if you look at like the team that like just focus on the Iran side of things that they came out with, I wouldn't be surprised if you just saw the goalie change with Aidareza Beranvand. He broke his nose in the first game. That was a huge collision that you guys might have seen. I think he's able to return back into goal. Hossein Hosseini actually played pretty decently, but I would be shocked if they deviate from this lineup that much unless Osmoon is hurt. If Osmoon is hurt, we could see a different forward in there, but this lineup worked really well, and they knew what to do. For the U.S., I think you have to go.
Arman, before you talk about the U.S., if you're Iran and you're inside the locker room, the dressing room, they look across. Does the United States scare you if you're Iran? The same way that you might look across at Brazil, Argentina with Messi, but
if you're comparing it to them, no way, right?
Like, no, but even in the scope of just this game, do you look across the United States and go, "Geez, this is gonna be tough," knowing that the United States have to go for the 3 points, or do you sit there and go, "Okay, they've managed one goal in the last 4 games on the Greg Berhalter. Yeah, they have very talented players." But they seem to be missing the creativity. We're playing to our strong suits here. If you're Iran, or if we're Iran, we're going to be able to play this way. We know it can work. We have this momentum from beating Wales. I mean, is the United States the matchup really that scary as far as it comes to just what's happening on the field?
This Iran team, and Armand, you can answer Stephen's question here too, but I'm going to build off it a little bit. I don't know how many players are held over from that 2014 Iranian national team that almost drew Argentina 0-0, I believe, until Messi had.
And don't forget about 2018 when they, I think they drew Spain and they beat Morocco, Spain. And then they lost to Spain and drew Portugal.
Like, again, this is people look at Iran and think they're a pushover. I had a guy, and I'm not even sure if this is like PC to say on YouTube, but.
Oh, God.
Asked me like, "Oh, do they play with severed heads in Iran?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, "That's like Iran's racist." But I'm like, Iran's a good team. Like that's I don't understand why people just look at them like, "Oh, it's just Iran." I'm like, there are countries I would say that about. I'm like, it's just whoever. You know what I mean? But like, Iran is not that team.
The Gold Cup.
Like Australia or Tunisia, I'd be like, if it's Australia or Tunisia, who cares?
No, but yeah, Iran is a really good team, and you can make the argument. Look, I think the U.S. has a quality to beat Iran, but Iran as a system as a whole, Carlos Queiroz is known to play like this super bunker defensive style and try to spring on you in the counter. The funny thing is, like I kind of mentioned, against Wales, they kind of deviated from that, right? Like they spent. So I think I meant just to remind you guys, 26% mid block, 28% low block. 22% attacking transition against England. Against Wales, 23% mid block, 19% low block, 22% attacking transition. I expect them to play a little bit, obviously more towards, I think, the English side of things. If they invite too much pressure, though, they'll get destroyed. I think. I don't think they can invite too much pressure.
So
back to your point though about scaring them.
Yeah.
Look, man, it's the World Cup. You have as like dumb and maybe as soccer purists as might sound, you have to believe that you can beat anybody. And like Mehdi Taremi, he came out. I think they had a thing. He said we're gonna he didn't say we're gonna beat the US. He had a prediction kind of before. He's like, yeah, we'll beat the US 2-1 or something.
They don't even need to beat the US. That's the thing. They can play a 0-0 and a draw is a win for them. Basically,
exactly.
Especially if Iran snag a goal at some point, and especially if they're up at 1.10. Then the United States have to score 2.
And the thing is, has the U.S. under Berhalter demonstrated at any time against any opponent that they're capable of, once they've gotten punched in the mouth from like an actual decent team, are they capable of digging themselves out of that hole? And I think the answer to that question is no. I can't think of a time in his tenure where they've gone down a goal against a team not named like Guyana or who I don't know, picking out some trash CONCACAF team that they're able to just come back on if they wanted to. Like,
so you're saying they're front runners?
Who
the
do
US.
you want to? Should we give our prediction? I'll give my prediction right now. I don't.
Well,
think,
let's not give a prediction yet. Let's do this first.
well, there's a couple.
No.
Well, that's a good point. There are a couple things in the chat we probably should address.
Yeah, so let me just to wrap a bow around Iran. Here's the thing. You can make an argument that Mehdi Taremi is the best forward between both those teams. And actually, I'll say it, he is the best forward in this game. He's in form. He's been scoring goals in Champions League for Porto. He is the best forward on his team. Now, the point I was trying to make earlier was the U.S., I think, has better players all around Iran. I think the U.S. should destroy this midfield. I'm just being really transparent and honest with you. They should. With the quality that they have, with the kind of the aging of this Iran team, I think they should run like Haj Shafi, like I said, 32 years old. Ezatullah, he's like 27. They call him the Persian Paul Pogba back in the day, but I don't think that's really worked out for him. Noor he has been okay in those moments. He actually played pretty decently or well against Wales. Look, but here's the question. They have quality. U.S. is quality. U.S. is better defense. U.S. is a better midfield. Here it comes to the point, like, can the U.S. has probably the worst forward in this game. And
who are you starting? Who are you starting at the top?
I think, look, if Iran is going to sit in a low block, which I think we anticipate, if Iran is going to sit there and bunker and try to hit you on the counter, I think you have to go a guy like Jesus. Jesus is the guy, Jesus Ferreira. He's the guy that he's played that role at FC Dallas. He's comfortable in that situation. He's going to be able to connect with the middle and have guys like McKennie, like Musa, be able to make runs through the middle. Do you think? I mean, look, every player is excited to play at the World Cup, but do you think Jesus has felt like he's been somewhat ignored by Berhalter, especially when you start Haji Wright, and he's got to sit there on the bench going like, well,
what do I have to do to get on the field?
Let's give credit to Haji Wright. The Turkish league is very physical, and he's, I think, the second leading scorer in the Turkish league. He has like 9 goals. He has 9 goals in 12 matches. So let's give credit to that.
I also don't think Haji Wright has looked out of place though either. I don't think Haji Wright made any mistakes where I looked at him and been like, wow, you're ass. You should not be out there. Like, I'll go back to the same player again. Walker Zimmerman has made a lot of errors where I'm like, why are you out in the field? I don't think you should be out there right now.
And I think, Jake, to that point, I think Jesus might fit this style better, which is a fluidity of how this team wants to play. And I don't think he'll feel slighted at all. I mean, I again, like, if that's the mentality you have, like, may a chip on your shoulder, go for it. But I think you just want to win in advance. You want to win a World Cup. Like, well, that's just my take.
Okay, so let me ask you some trivia here. The United States' third game at the World Cup. There's been 8 of them, according to Kyle Baum on Twitter. Of the 8 games that they have played, in the final game, how many have the U.S. won?
Well, Algeria was one of them, right?
I think it's
definitely one.
I bet it's just one. I bet it's just like one, maybe
like 2.
It's one game in the final.
It was Algeria.
It's the Algeria game.
It's the Landon Donovan 90-some minute. It's the famous Ian Darke. Go USA.
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't think any of this history really matters as far as influencing the players currently and what's going to happen. But whatever. You want to use historic metrics to somehow guide what's going to happen in the future. I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. I just think it's interesting that you have the United States in the position which they need to win, and maybe we start to see Berhalter come out of his shell, and he's going to have to throw caution.
He's going to have to.
He has no choice.
He's going to have to.
At what point, if it's 0-0 after halftime, at what point in the second half he gets desperate and starts to, is it, especially with Iran knowing how they can counter. In that first 45 minutes, it's going to be very edgy on the touchline.
This is why we talked about a couple of days ago, Armand and I. It's at what point do you go to a 3-man back line and just throw caution to the wind and just say we're pushing guys forward. We're really going to play 2 men in the back, and then Tyler Adams is in that fireman role, if you will, where he's going to put out fires just in front of. He's been
great.
He's been the best player for the men's national team.
I think he's been arguably one of the best players of the tournament so far.
No, 100%. 11 recoveries against Wales. That's unheard of. That's unheard of to recover the ball as much and clear out those fires.
So, if you're Berhalter, Arman, you want Jesus at the what system are you running here? Are they going to?
I think you stick with what you got here. I think you stick with a 4-3-3. I think adding Jesus as a dynamic that's different, right? It adds a little bit more of a connection in the middle, and you're going to need that because you're going to need to break the lines of Iran.
And you need creativity.
You need someone to break those lines where maybe Pulisic can make the run if you're pushing numbers high, etc. And that space that Jesus can open up, you may see Pulisic make runs. Because at FC Dallas, we saw Jesus make runs that open up space for other guys to exploit. I think you have to go Jesus in this moment. I think you stick with the same lineup you have. Just insert Jesus. And whatever is going on with Reyna, whatever is going on with him, but if he's ready to go, and he can go, if he can't go 90, I would say bring him, save him for later, bring him on in minute 60 or whatever. But if he can, I would look to potentially start him, and you need to put pressure on the onset. The longer the game goes on 0-0, the more challenges will be presented to the U.S. Keep in mind this. Go watch, if you guys maybe don't have time, whatever, but I'll give you a little recap. Go watch Iran-England. When England scored that first goal, Iran just looked shook, and they had to press on. Now keep in mind, they need to tie. If you get that early goal, they're going to break out of their shell. So once they break out of their shell, you go after it.
So, Arman, okay, let me ask you this. You're talking about, so the only changes it sounds like you're going to make is you're starting Jesus Ferreira over Sargent and
Haji Wright, yeah.
Haji Wright. There isn't a situation, again.
What about Gio Reyna? Sorry, what about Gio Reyna?
Well, this is where I'm kind of going towards here, actually, a little bit there, Steven. So I'm saying, I guess the question I'm going to ask is, and I know how good the U.S. midfield has been, but is there a situation in where you say, we're going to need a lot more attacking prowess in the field? Like, if you just say, screw it, let's just, from the jump, we're going to see if we can punch them right in the mouth, in the first 15 minutes of the match. Is there a situation in which you pull Yunus Musa off the field, and more so you're just running with, McKennie and Adams in that back line, and put Pulisic in that number 10 role and put, a Brendan Aronson out to the left? Where you're having more guys who can run?
It's going to be interesting. If anything, I think you'd probably have Aronson be subbed in that middle spot.
Okay.
And have Pulisic out wide. I think Pulisic's more comfortable out wide.
I think he's too. I think he's more comfortable out wide too. But I know at the beginning of this whole cycle, there was the whole we were forcing Pulisic in that number 10 role.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Aronson in the middle is a lot better and can put a lot of pressure. I think it's also a luxury to have him come off the bench, because if they need a goal and if they need to dog it out, he can run around like crazy. You also have Reyna off the bench as well too. So
I don't know how much we want to get into Eric Winaldo's thoughts here on Twitter Spaces, in which he talked about how Greg Berhalter asked Gio to lie to media, saying he was hurt, but he wasn't. And this is all according to Claudio Reyna, his dad. Him and Eric were once teammates or friends. And basically, there seems to be some sort of rift between Greg Berhalter and Gio. I don't know, whatever you want to take it for what it's worth. What do you do with Gio? It seems like everyone is clamoring for him to play. Do you start him? Is he the first name off the bench? Do you go with what has been in the midfield? What has been going forward has been somewhat successful as far as building chemistry. The Adams, Musa, and McKennie, Pulisic, whoever you want to throw into that core. Do you try to break them apart and try something different, knowing that you haven't really done well going forward, or you are in the need of a goal?
Let me say this. I think it depends on the moment. I think you start with what's got you there. And I think Weah, Pulisic, in the case of this Jesus, is what, and MMA in the middle has helped get them there. And it depends on what happens in a game. I think if you go 45 minutes and you haven't created anything, I think then you can probably look into say, okay, is Jesus doing well in this moment? Is he not? Maybe is it possible? Should we move Weah in the middle and then maybe put Reyna out wide and take out Jesus if Jesus is struggling? If we need more people running in behind lines, if the game is 1-0 or 2-0, I don't think you can put Reyna on because I think he's a little bit of a liability defensively. You'd rather have Aronson in that moment. But Jake, I don't know. What do you think from Steven's question? What do you make of it?
I don't know. It's like what you're saying. I don't even like Berhalter. Like we were talking about moving like Weah into the middle, into that number 9 role. Like he had that option actually against England. He didn't even do that. He took him off and put Reyna out wide, and then put Josh Sargent right there in the middle. So I guess I don't know. To me, it's like I guess going back to the Reyna discussion, it's like in a way, isn't Berhalter managing for his job through the next into the next cycle?
I mean, yeah, if he doesn't.
So So whatever this beef is with Reyna, it's like, well, do you want your job, or do you want to just stick it to a 20-year-old kid?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if Gio Reyna can give you, I don't know, 70 minutes, don't you have to start him? Don't you have to like put him out there?
Maybe at halftime,
That's what I'm thinking. It just depends on the moment. I think at halftime. Because I think Iran is a very good team. I think they're going to cause issues. The thing is, I think their depth isn't great. I think in the U.S. depth sometimes struggles as well too. I don't think their depth is great, but the players know their roles, and they have to know their roles. Because they don't know their roles, they're going to get caught. And the thing is, this is a very hard moment for a player on Iran because you have to be concentrated and switched on for 90 minutes. You know how hard that is to be switched on. You can't make a mistake. You're the less talented team in this moment. You can't make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, it's gonna cost you. If the U.S. has someone that can finish those mistakes.
Right. Well, go ahead, Jake.
I didn't say anything.
What?
No. What I was gonna say is before we get to the prediction, there's a couple of comments here in the chat I want to address, just as far as just a World Cup larger thing going on here. So from Carlos Guzman, he's wondering regarding the Confederation struggling here in 2022, is this a CONCACAF thing? Will hosting 2026 help the Confederation? I think Costa Rica getting shellacked by Spain wasn't a good thing, but then they ended up beating Japan. So some sense they've salvaged their opportunity. They still can get out of the group. Canada, I think, have been fantastic to watch. I just think they lack the talent, and I think they're going to get better going forward. I don't know in the next 4 years whether or not they will be able to cultivate that talent needed. But Alphonso Davies has been fun to watch. Buchanan is great.
I think the Canadian Premier League will help Canada. I think cultivate some talent. I think you'll slowly start to see guys leaving the Canadian Premier League, maybe for MLS. Maybe that's like the next step for them is to get guys into MLS, or maybe there's some talent that's being missed that maybe a couple smaller-ish leagues in Europe, like in Belgium, can find some guys. And I think that'll help Canada. I think by 2026 they'll be even better. But sorry,
I think you're right, Jake. Because I think people are trying to look for the next big thing in North America, right? And MLS,
Canada might be it.
Yeah, and Canada might be it.
What about Mexico? They drew their opening game and then they lost.
To forget Messi, man. Messi's brilliant.
Messi's brilliance there, 2-0. I don't think they will do much in their final game. I think Mexico might be at this awkward transition of players just generation gap between.
And they've been talking about that for a while too. That's kind of been
it's worrying.
Guys, this is what we kind of talk about when we're on the pod. The gap between Liga MX and MLS. Like, I know there's this gap, all the teams, but it's a pretty heavy, not heavy, but decently there's a lot of Liga MX players that play for Mexico. Are we seeing the domestic league kind of struggle in these moments? I think we're starting to see that. And meanwhile, you see the U.S., they're starting to export a lot of players to European leagues. The MLS players that are playing are okay. But those players that are really good in those domestic leagues are being, going up to Europe. Aronson, Adams. You can go on and on throughout, all that stuff. So I think you're kind of starting to see that little dynamic change as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Then we got Retro Sports here talking about how 300 U.S. supporters and about 30 English supporters got together in Oklahoma City for the watch party, which is exciting. Fox
That's
had
brilliant.
15 million people watching.
20 million plus Telemundo.
Oh, Telemundo, of course, 20 million. So that's a great number. Fantastic to see. I'm curious to see what the next game against Iran on Tuesday does. Fox has not stopped plugging that game. You can't watch 30 minutes of World Cup.
They didn't stop plugging a U.S.-England game too. Like, damn.
Well, it'll be. I don't know if it'll do 20 million. I mean, it's a Tuesday afternoon. That's the other thing. People are at. People. I don't know. Do people go to work anymore? I don't know. I guess I start a new job next week. So that will actually be in office. But
kids.
Anyway.
And then, I got Eric Siv here asking, is Ken Berhalter pick the right team to beat Iran?
No.
I don't know. Is he stubborn in his ways? I think
he's an idiot. I've been on that train for 4 years. He's an idiot.
There you go. Your take cornered.
Well, come on. I think Dave Sarakin could have accomplished what Greg Berhalter's accomplished.
All right.
Hey, he drew France before 2018. He drew the World Cup champions in France.
Sure. And then last comment here by Carlos Guzman again. Berhalter's contract ends after the World Cup. He threw out Martinez from Belgium, or maybe John Hertman.
Please, no Martinez from Belgium. Please.
I think he's a little too similar to.
Dude, please.
Berhalter.
Dude, have you all seen the way Belgium plays, man? Please. I do not want that.
You all know
golden generation.
You all know who I want.
Jose Mourinho.
That's exactly who I want.
I can't. The only reason why I want Jose Mourinho is because I can't wait to see the U.S. soccer media just get crushed by Jose Mourinho. I will watch the games just to see the media just get squashed, to understand how easy they have it compared to the media across seas in Italy or in Germany or in England, when the managers are way more outspoken and it's just a lot.
He's what? Is this year 2 or year 3 for him at Roma?
3, I think.
3, I don't know.
What's the shelf life? 2.5 years. He's about 2.5 years, and then the bottom falls out for any Mourinho.
He might take over. Yeah, he might take over Portugal though. That's the one thing he's missing.
I hope not.
I don't know. I think he's would be perfect in a international club. Also, I don't know how the word is, but yeah, as an international manager.
Yeah. Also, we're talking about Herdman. He messed up today against Croatia. You saw Thibaut Hutchinson, he was struggling hard, and Croatia just ripped that middle.
Herman would be fun, though. I think he's way more creative than Berhalter. I think the way Canada play is fun.
I mean, they play fun, but they lose.
I know, but here's the thing. I mean, not to get ahead of ourselves, but 2026, we're automatically qualified. We're going to need to make sure that we play either in Copa America or do something to get away from playing just CONCACAF teams, because I think
we can't even play CONCACAF teams because we don't have to go through the CONCACAF qualifications either. That's the other thing. You're going to be playing a lot of Mexico and Canada during those international windows of World Cup qualifiers, I think, is what's gonna.
Well, you gotta try to make some friendlies with the Brazils, the Argentinas, Chiles. I don't know.
Y'all getting so ahead of yourselves. We have a freaking knockout game, basically.
Well, we're talking new managers. Don't worry, Jesse Marsh probably will be out of a job by the spring, so he'll probably be the new national team manager.
So if we're already talking about 2026 and managers, Jake, I guess your prediction is that we're losing here.
My prediction, I don't think they get out. I think they draw 1-1.
Armand, what's your prediction here?
Okay, so let's set the scene. Look, Iran, we know. I think we have a pretty damn good idea of how they're going to play. They're going to look to sit back and exploit the U.S. on the counter in any way possible. I don't think they sit back as much as people want to say, because I don't think they want to invite too much pressure. But they'll try their best to get a draw. The U.S., I think, is going to figure out ways to beat Iran. But there's going to be, I think, 3 keys. I think the first thing is, can the center backs help find the center mids? Can they find those and break those lines and force Iran in those weird kind of almost transition moments to where, okay, Tim Ream, for example, can find Musa. Musa can turn into space. He can find Sergiño Dest. Dest can play a ball, and whoever's in the middle can score, whoever wants to score. Can they do that? The second thing, can they outrun Iran's midfield? They should be able to. but they need to. They need to, because this Iran midfield, I would probably say, is not as great, and I think that it can be exploited. And I think the final thing is, can they find that creative spark? Can they find it? Will they be able to score goals against a team that is going to try their hardest to not allow a goal? They're going to waste time, which I don't know if they'll have that much effect because of all the added time that's being added now in the World Cup games. They're going to do anything to disrupt the flow of the U.S. They're going to foul. The U.S. have had bad set-piece service, but Iran has struggled on set pieces, as we saw against England, and I think there was a couple moments against Wales as well. So knowing those three things, if the U.S., I think, can exploit those three things, I think the U.S. will be fine. I think the U.S. will secure a 2-0. It'll be nervy until about the 50th minute. The U.S. will have a breakthrough in the second half. Iran will be forced to come out of their shell. I think the U.S. will hit them again maybe in the 60th, 65th minute, and then it'll end up in a 2-0 victory for the U.S. They'll advance second to play either
the Netherlands or Ecuador.
Either Ecuador or Netherlands. I think
which is beatable if you ask me.
Exactly. I think they're both.
I don't know. Like, who's that kid? Netherlands, Cody. What the?
Gapco.
Yeah, but the Dutch haven't been impressive. I think against Ecuador, they look impressive for the first 7 minutes, and then they invite Ecuador back in. The USA will squeak out 1-0. You'll get a late winner. I think there'll be Twitter's gonna have a meltdown.
It's gonna be nervy as hell, man.
It's gonna be 0-0. Nothing's happening. And I think you just get that one moment set piece, even though delivery from Pulisic and whoever else is taking. I think this. Here's last comment here before we got to get going. Kellyn Acosta does provide pretty good, decent service. Do you think there's a chance that Berhalter puts him on, knowing that his delivery is better? Because I think Pulisic and the delivery that we have seen in the opening 2 matches has been quite poor.
I think there's a chance. I mean, if they're down, I think there's always a chance to do that. I think there always will be. Jake, what do you think the scenario is going to be? Like, you said 1-1. Steve and I kind of laid out the scenarios that we think are going to happen. Again, me saying that it's going to be scoreless into halftime. U.S. will break through the 50th, and then the 60th, or around the 60th, 70th minute.
I think
Steven had this.
It'll be something like we saw in the game against Wales, where they'll find a goal, maybe.
The U.S. or Iran?
The U.S. will find a goal early, I think. Mm-hmm. And then I think the U.S. will be the one that goes into their shell. And Iran will be the one asking all the questions. And I think Iran will find a backbreaker after like the 75th minute to break the hearts of Americans everywhere. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't think...
I'm nervous, guys.
I think they struggle when teams want to play more direct with them, like we saw against Wales, and I think that might happen against Iran. That's my prediction. I'm always wrong though when I predict things. So what's going to end up happening is the U.S. will probably win like 3-0 now, or so.
There you go.
Nothing really to worry about. But
at
all right,
Unc Sam Soccer Pod.
Yeah, follow us on Twitter that we don't ever use anymore.
We'll do a show. We'll do a show after the Iran game.
We'll do it. Yeah.
After the Iran, you want to do after the Iran game? Well, okay. If they lose or draw to Iran, we'll do a game after it. I don't know what day, but we'll do it. If they get out, I believe they play Saturday morning.
Yeah, we'll do a preview
at 9 a.m. and then we can also then just talk about the last 2 games. So
is it really Saturday at 9?
I think it's Saturday at 9. I looked into this because someone asked me.
Are
you sure it's not 10?
No, it's 9. It's 9 Central, 10 Eastern.
That's okay. Hey, it could be 4 a.m. It could be a lot worse. So
I woke up for that game.
I did that, and that is miserable. That is way too early.
It screwed up the rest of my 2 days.
Yeah,
I'm struggling still, man.
I agree. Anyway, it was a good little reunion show. We'll be back.
It was fun, guys.
We'll be back. All right, I guess we'll be back. So, all right. So you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Trouble. You can follow Armancafy at Armancafy. And Steven's on private, so you can't follow him. But if you want to, you can try to, and maybe he'll accept your request. So for Armand and Steven, I'm Jake. Maybe we'll talk to you guys next time.
See you on the flip side.
See ya.